Hi guys, welcome to our Tuesdays Live. I love this. It's my favorite day of the week because I get to spend it with you. Boy, oh boy, are there a lot of things that are going on. So what I had planned to talk about to begin with, which I'm going to do anyway, is about Bitcoin and gold, which I think is super interesting, especially, let's just start because all right, let me take you on a little journey here, right? Imagine you're on a ship in rough seas. 2 lifeboats hang on the side. One lifeboat is made of solid metal, heavy, reliable, tested for centuries. The other is made of an experimental composite material, lightweight, fast, but never tested in a real storm. Well, quite frankly, when the waves are calm, their experimental boat looks exciting. After all, it's got a new motor and engine. It's a little different. But frankly, when the storm clouds gather, when the wind shifts, when the ship starts to tilt, don't choose the boat that's trendy. You choose the boat that's proven. And that's exactly what we're watching right now in real time, as there is a huge shift that's taking place between the contract gold and silver price, so the spot price, as well as the physical markets, which are now beginning, about a year ago, really, beginning their role in really determining true price discovery. But this is what I found super interesting, and that is Bitcoin loses to gold as debasement trade with Bitcoin at 2-year lows. Here's the headline, right? But what does that really mean? Because for years, Bitcoin was marketed as the hedge against inflation and money printing. Digital gold, they wanted you to believe it. But frankly, when real debasement pressure hit, inflation, deficit, debt spirals, and with lots of the activity that's happening right now too, Bitcoin doesn't behave like sound money. It behaves like a risk asset. Meanwhile, gold quietly did what gold always does. It held its value. It gained more trust. It attracted capital. And now, look at this. Even Wall Street is admitting it. And though this has been true since 2000, since the turn of this century, now Wall Street's saying, oh yes, gold, gold, gold. But it's been there all along. This is the moment that the narrative cracks. Because what is he saying? Bitcoin failed to become investors' choice as the debasement trade. Bitcoin price action slumps while gold and silver hit repeat all-time highs. And of course, they're doing it again today. So Chris Wood at Jefferies, one of the most respected macro strategists on the street, he didn't just downgrade Bitcoin. He flipped the trade entirely. Buy gold, sell Bitcoin. Why? Because of something most investors aren't even thinking about yet. Quantum computing. Now, quantum computing threatens the cryptographic foundations that Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies rely on. So if quantum breakthroughs accelerate, and they are, Bitcoin's security model becomes vulnerable. But yet gold, that doesn't have that problem. It doesn't rely on encryption. It doesn't rely on code. It doesn't rely on electricity. It doesn't rely on trust. Gold is value in its final form and in any final form, and so is, frankly, silver. And then he actually said it out loud. The store of value concept is clearly on a less solid foundation from the view of a long-term portfolio. I mean, come on, you guys. Ta-dum. What in the world do you think? So that's the whole ball game. Bitcoin's store of value narrative was always theoretical. It was always dependent on adoption, sentiment, and liquidity. And gold's store of value narrative, it's not theoretical. It's historical. It's mathematical. It's civilizational. Gold has been the anchor for 5,000 years. Bitcoin has been around for 15, and not a coincidence when it was born. January of 2009, not a coincidence at all. And when institutions start questioning the store of value foundation, they don't wait, they rotate. And what's particularly interesting right now, to be honest with you, is we are in a bear market in Bitcoin, and yet look at the adoption with the banks and the governments around the world. They're going to shove this down our throats, but what happens when quantum computing really comes to the front? You got a problem. So the Bitcoin, I'm going to show you this. He believes, okay, that's long. Okay. What you're looking at here is the Bitcoin to gold ratio, and it's been breaking down, meaning that gold is outperforming Bitcoin in real terms. The ratio is the truth serum. It strips out the hype, it strips out the headlines, and it strips out the narratives, and it shows what investors actually trust when the system starts to wobble. And right now, quite honestly, they trust gold just like they have for 5,000 years. So really, what does all of this mean for you? For anyone trying to protect their wealth in a world of rising debt, rising risk, and rising uncertainty? Well, let's go back to those two lifeboats, shall we? Because Bitcoin is innovative, it's interesting, Wall Street certainly adopted it, and it may have a future in one place, but it's still an experiment, and one that depends on electricity, networks, cryptography, and sentiment. Gold is the proven vessel, and so is silver. The one that's carried civilizations through currency collapses, debt crises, wars, resets, and transitions. So when the storm gets rough, you don't gamble on the experimental boat. You choose the proven boat, the one that has survived every storm in recorded history, over 4,800 of them. That's why Jeffries made the shift. That's why institutions are starting to rotate and starting to look at it differently, even as they are rushing for adoption. This makes us all very vulnerable, and it's why individuals who understand sound money are positioning now. They're not waiting before the next wave hits, because we don't know which wave is going to topple this boat. And when that storm comes, you don't rise then. You're not going to have time to get prepared. That's why it's so important for you to call us and get your sound money strategy in place and executed today. Because you can live on hopium, but that is not a very good plan. And if you fail the level of your preparation, you got a problem. Gold is your preparation, and so is silver. So we've got some more things to talk about, because that's what I wanted to talk about specifically today, and I think we should get into it more. But over the weekend, with President Trump really pushing the narrative on Greenland, well, treasuries joined global bond slide after Japan-led sell-off. So the bonds are in the news again. And considering the fact that the treasuries are the foundation of a global financial system, and let me just remind you of this, all right? This is how bonds work. This is how all debts work. So this could be true for any mortgages, for any car loans, any student debt, not just bonds. Okay, so this is how debt works. This is interest rates. This is the principal value. This is when it was issued, right? This is the market value. because they're all issued at a certain level. When interest rates go down, the market value of the debt goes up. When interest rates go up, like it is today, particularly on the long end, the market value of that debt goes down. If there is a run on the bank and they're forced to liquidate when it is, first of all, it makes it obvious it's underwater. Remember, we had 15 years of zero interest rates, so that has not been worked through yet, right? But this is the problem right now because interest rates are going up on a global basis, and that means that the market value of these bonds are going down. And it costs governments, corporations, and individuals more to carry and service this debt. UK approval on China embassy paves way for Starmer Beijing trip. It's a little disjointed because this stuff was coming at me pretty fast, so I just grabbed it and threw it on there because we've also seen where Canada is solidifying their relationship with China. So the level of allies with everything that's going on is shifting and not necessarily in the U.S.'s favor. Can President Trump get everybody, to go along with it? Because I'm not so sure that that's true. We're going to find out. But now I will take questions. And you can see there's just so much that's going on in these markets. And I know both, gold, spot gold was up above 4,700 and spot silver was up above I think it got close to $94 the last time I looked. I can't tell you where it is right at this moment. But Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are down where gold and silver are up. Still not reflecting their fundamental value, but definitely transitioning or continuing the transition to physical price discovery with all the premiums that's in the system. Okay, so now I'll stop talking and let's take some questions. Crims SM3E says, Lynette, please tell us what is your opinion regarding current collectible gold coins issued by the Royal Canadian Mint? Do you think they are good protection against confiscation? No, I really don't. They're calling them collectibles, but the question is, can you hold them inside of an IRA? Because that's where you're going to see more truth. If you can hold it inside of an IRA, inside of a retirement plan, then it's really classified as monetary gold. If you cannot, then that's where the collectible is. So the new Royal Canadian Mint coins, that's new stuff. That would be monetary gold. I don't think that it will give you much protection unless they really do give it a different status. So, and I don't see that happening. I'm sorry, but I don't. Plus, when you're talking about Canada, they have no gold reserves. That is a huge problem. So, and watching them solidify a closer relationship with China away from the U.S., that is not going to make things easier, for us. But closer ties with our neighbors to who we profess to not be friends with. I mean, can you see the problem? So I think the noose is closing, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. And Ren Pixie asks, hi, Lynette. Hi, everyone. Question is, collecting pre-65 junk silver a protection against silver confiscation? I'm thinking they'll be going for the bullion first. And you're absolutely right, because this would be really outside of the norm. They can't go back to prior to 1965, just like they can't go back to prior to 33 and create new ones. So I do believe that would give you a level of protection. And by the way, I'm not done with it yet, but I am working on a silver confiscation piece and the possibility and probability of that. So bear with me here for a minute. I will get it done, and then we can look at that particular topic in a great great more detail, including actually, well, I don't know when we're going to release it, but that could probably be two pieces, because I just started recording a series today, the 5 doom loops of a financial crisis. So that kind of covers, I think that probably will go into the collateral piece. So you'll probably be seeing a little bit something about that sooner than later. But Jap P4B asks, confiscation? LOL. Rarely any citizens of North America own gold compared to commercial ownership of physical precious metals. Pre-1929 Great Depression precious metal citizen ownership was far more. This was kind of like all the plan. But if you notice, Jap, what is happening to the shift in the digital markets, so the contract markets leading the physical market in price discovery, that takes on a whole nother meaning with this. So you can laugh out loud, but in the U.S., gold has been overtly confiscated one time? No. No. How about 5? 5 times. To me, that is clear historic precedence. Maybe I'm wrong. So that's why I like the collectibles, because understanding the true value of an ounce of gold, just an ounce of here, this is a new piece, just an ounce of gold. If I can buy these way below the true fundamental value of monetary gold, rock and roll hoochie coo. Now I have one asset. If you're holding bullion, you better be right, because if you're wrong, you got a problem. You won't be able to use it in the normal marketplace. I'm not saying they're coming banging on your doors, but you'd have to go to the black market, and you're not going to be able to execute a real strategy that way. With this, I got the best of both worlds. It is classified as a collectible, which flows into what the 1%ers do for themselves. So rock and roll hoochie coo on that end. And because I can buy them so far below fundamental value, and that alone eats up any fees, any taxes, anything, because the sound money strategy is built inside of a complete loop. Therefore, this one thing is, whether I'm right or whether I'm wrong, I'm dandy, and I have the kind of gold I can use in the normal marketplace. Do not be short-sighted. That is what I fear most people are. Oh, no, that could never happen again. Well, now what are you doing? You're living on hopium, and hopium is not a very good plan. You better be right, because if you're wrong, bend over. What can I say? And Ernest DeBella says, bless you and farm. Thank you so much. Rock and roll hoochie coo. Yep. Looks like we can get to 24-to-1 silver gold ratio this year. Do you have any signs, clues to look for? Consumer confidence in dollars is about to crash. Yes, but I also, did we put that out? The gold and silver ratio video went out last weekend, right? Last Saturday? I'm pretty sure. So take a look, and you have the links to all of these charts. And remember, 50 to 1 is a support level. So if that gold silver ratio bounces to the 50 to 1 and comes back off of it, that'll tell us one thing. And it could do it a number of times if and when it does break through. If it breaks through that 50 to 1, they'll have to go back and look at the chart again to see where the next level of support would be. But that's where you'll be able to see that coming, right? And yes, consumer confidence, that's what this affordability push is all about, is to regain that consumer confidence. Will it happen? We're going to find out. Rapid inflation is definitely going to impact the prices that we see, and that will impact the consumer confidence. But technically speaking, Just go look at the long-term trends, go in and look at it, pull the link, and you can pay attention to that. When it goes below the 50 to 1, then it's going to test a lower level, technically. And Yulia4310 asks, "Hi, Lynette. Thank you for publishing precious and understandable videos." You are very welcome, and I'm working on it. I actually feel like my most current work has gone to another new level, but you can let me know because I'm always trying to do it better and better and better. I'd like to ask whether you recommend us to sell all gold coins and buy silver coins. The gold-silver ratio goes down. No, 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 no. This is not a trade. And when you're looking at a ratio and this kind of conversation, Yulia, that's how you're thinking about it, which is how Wall Street has trained us to be very short-sighted, very short-term thinking, because that's the easiest way to manipulate you. No, 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 no. You should have both. You should have gold and you should have silver, but it should also be based upon what it is that you're trying to accomplish. That's why with the sound money strategy, the first thing we talk about is what your goals are. What are you trying to accomplish? And then it goes further because you might not even know what you're trying to accomplish. But what we have to do is we have to make sure we can sustain our current standard of living, protect the fiat money wealth like your intangible stocks, bonds, etc., 401ks, IRAs, those kind of thing. Protect what we've already managed to accumulate. Prepare to eliminate any of that fixed rate debt, and then be in a position to have the wealth transfer our way. So there are different pieces and parts. And then if this is your goal, like it is mine, leave a legacy for your children, the children that aren't even born yet. So these are the different things that we can accomplish with gold and silver. And depending upon what your priorities are, and then of course what you have to work with, would determine, well, how much gold do I need? How much silver do I need? And what kind of gold and what kind of silver do I need? So there is no good blanket answer, but I can tell you, do not sell your gold. Do not sell your gold. Your gold is your primary currency metal. And if you looked at the video, would you check with Mimi and see, because I think that was going to be published on Saturday, the gold-silver ratio. It was on the 19th. Please go back and look at that, because the last two slides, this is what happens all the time. And if you want me to show you more with other currencies, I'm very happy to do that. But what happens is, the gold-silver ratio was extreme, right? Actually, let me pull up the chart. Hold on. Let me pull up the chart. And then that way I can show you and talk to you about it at the same time. And let's see. Just bear with me here for 1 second. We're going to open the gold-silver ratio. Okay. And I did this last week, and then Mimi just cut out the first part of it. But let's see. I think that's what I want. Yep, that's the one I want. All right, that's slide number 3. Okay, I'm going to get to slide number 3. And I'm ready. Okay, so this is the long-term trends going back to 1919 and the gold-silver ratio, right? So actually, this goes back to 1913. And where we are right at this moment, okay, is right here. And that's the 50 to 1, where you can see where it hit that support level. Remember, on the top, the line that's on the top is called resistance. The line that's on the bottom is called support. When you break that resistance level on the top, then that becomes the new support level, right? And if you just bounce off of it and you go down to test that next line level, that would be support. If it breaks it, then you're going down again. It's a little complicated. I can do this again if you want just a technical lesson on it. But what I want you to see is where we are on this, because we hit support there. And that's what created that support level. Right there, we created resistance. We broke that resistance level. Now, the reason why I'm showing you that, and that was 121 to 1, is because if we fail and we go back up to test it and we go above it again, it's going to go higher, right? And that's probably going to happen once we're full blown into the hyperinflationary phase, because it's what happens. At the moment that I did this, which, what was the date of that? No, I don't have the date. Darn it. But it was last week, so that could have changed. I haven't checked recently. That was 58 to 1. So can you see how it's going down to test that 50, that line? Let's see if I can do. Come on. Let me see if I can grab this. Okay, see it right here? If it goes down, if it breaks through this line, this 50 to 1, then it's going to go test the next level. But then if it does that, I would say we'll see when it goes through that, then it would go back and test that. So we'll have to see. A little bit of patience, and the technicals will ultimately tell you what's going on. I'll leave that there in case we need to pull it up again. So the answer is no. What'll happen is that gold-silver ratio will become more narrow. Actually, let me show you. Duh. Okay, this is gold and silver during the Weimar Republic. Their gold and silver ratio, right? And you can see 15 to 1, 11 to 1, 40 to 1, okay, all the way down in 22 before it made its biggest push. And Germany was well into hyperinflation by then. It got as low as 25 to 1 before it went ahead and then flew up to 100 to 1. So this is the kind of pattern that you see during a hyperinflationary currency reset. And this is what I expect to see again in the U.S. with that ratio that I just showed you. We'll find out. I'm either going to be right or I'm going to be wrong. But history shows us that this is the pattern that it flows through, which is why don't sell your gold. It's going to be almost impossible for you to buy it back because the pricing and availability and all of that. Just execute the strategy. This isn't a one-hit wonder. This is a long-term strategy that, presuming history repeats like it has over 4,800 times, we get the same kind of behavior, then guess what? If you're executing this strategy, you're in a much better position on the other side of this. There's your legacy. There's where you can take care of not just yourself, because you cannot outlive the income that we will be generating from these investments. This is the kind of thing that can be then passed down and put your family, your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, etc., in a much better position that they're going to be than they would be if you don't do anything. So, and Teresa Marie 1089 asks, I want to have fractional gold on hand to pay property taxes if needed. Should it be bullion or pre-33 coins? It should be whatever it is that you personally feel the most comfortable with. For me, I don't even know that I have one here. I personally prefer the old pre-1948 foreign gold coins, the fractional ones that you're talking about. And fractional, for those that are new to this, simply mean less than an ounce. So this is an ounce, and this is a $5, gold coin, a $5 gold coin. So you can see this is a quarter of an ounce, right? So it's the fractionals that you want. The pre-33s are a little more expensive than the pre-1948, like sovereigns, roosters, maybe French, Swiss francs, something like that. I'm not really sure because I don't actually work directly in that area. But call us. I mean, that's really simple. Just call us. We'll tell you how much they are, and you can make your own choice. I mean, at that level, even if you're doing bullion, you do like 10th ounces or something like that. It likely would not raise many or any red flags. So again, I go back to, look, regardless of what anybody says, you're the one that's going to be dealing with the consequences. So it has to be to your level of comfort. Personally, I am not comfortable with bullion, so I don't have very much of it. I mean, you're basically looking at, this coin. There's some bullion coins in my other travel bracelet, which I'm not wearing. But like all of these fractionals, this one is 1887, 1879, 1887. Bunch of 1887s. What a good year. Oops. 1926. Gets smaller and smaller and harder to see the dates, but that could be my age. 1853. So there you go. And Ruby's 200 asks, yes, Lynette, you are right. Oops, you went too far. I can't read it. Thank you. Mario and Neko, I love Mario, showed the same cup and handle chart for the Weimar Republic and the current U.S. fiat dollar. They are the same. I mean, look, this is not rocket science, nor should it be rocket science. If you can learn how to read the patterns, that tells you everything. And if you can learn how to recognize the life cycle of a currency, because everything has a life cycle, right? You're not going to look at my 10-year-old granddaughter and think that she's going to be 72 this year, just like you're not going to look at me and think, oh, she's going to be 12 this year. Because the difference for you recognizing life cycles of a currency and life cycles of a human is just that you've seen it over and over again and you're taught about it, right? So infants, toddlers, teens, young men and women, older people, etc. And actually what's been very interesting for me personally is just a little aside. Since I have twin daughters and they're 44, as a mother, what's been so fascinating for me is to watch them be where I was in my 40s, and 30s, etc. So you see, these patterns repeat, and you just have to get enough distance and keep your cool kind of like enough so that you can learn how to recognize the patterns. And once you do, then you know where we most likely are inside of the trend cycle and what is the next most likely outcome. And then you get into position to take advantage of it, right? That's all. And so thank you for that, Ruby's 200. I appreciate it. And I'm not surprised that Maria and I are on the same page. We have a lot of respect and admiration for each other. And Joe Potter, too, my local mall had a life cycle. Yep. All of this does. And because we're at the end of this fiat money's life cycle, that's why they need a new system. And I have said, and I will continue to say, it died in 2008. And Silverman 5707 says, after the overnight currency reset, how long does it take before the banks adjust to the new rate? Well, they do that overnight. That's like immediate. So you go to bed one night and you have, say, $1,000 in the bank. When you wake up, and they'll do it over a weekend. That's when they always do it. You'll wake up the next morning to one. I don't know what that cover ratio is going to be, and nobody's going to know until they actually do it. So whenever I go to fundamental value, I do it on a one-to-one basis. However, that's pretty much how it happens, where you just, the banks will adjust overnight. but then gold hangs up there for a period of time. And so part of the exit strategy is on fixed rate debt is to take advantage of that. And I don't know when it's coming out, but I did, we haven't recorded it yet either, but I did just do a video on how you will be able to pay your mortgage off, although I can say this with any fixed rate debt, with gold. So that's coming your way very shortly. And Frozen Dog 5275 asks, hi Lynette, is the reason you hold pre-1933 gold coins because you think the collectible value, i.e. the premiums, will return in the future, or because they have a lower risk of confiscation? Maybe both, and actually both. Absolutely. And I am in the process of working on why Noomies, because this is a question that I get asked all the time. And what's been a little gratifying to me is that there are people that are out there that I've interviewed with, and I haven't interviewed with them in many years because, oh no, collectibles are horrible, they're horrible. And now all of a sudden, they're not so horrible by those people that were denigrating them before. I find that quite interesting, to tell you the truth. But they don't understand the market, so why wouldn't you want to work with somebody that actually does? And I'll go back to my Uncle Al in this, because as a major high-end antique dealer, he was the one that taught me how tangible assets, so how gold and silver and glass and all these other things, tangible assets go from undervaluation to fair valuation to overvaluation to fair to under in a constant loop, because they don't go to zero, unlike fiat money assets. Those do go to zero because the money on which they're based has no value, right? Has no value. But hard assets, gold, silver, and really I'm so excited. I was so prolific this weekend because I just felt like I was on fire and I just couldn't stop. So I actually had like 4 solid days of production. And you wait till you see. Wait till you see. I'm quite excited about the things that I've been producing just lately. I feel like there's a new level. So yeah, you're going to see all of this. And even the naysayers on the pre-33 coins, yeah, just hold on to that thought for a minute. Say anything that you want, but my nickname used to be, although if Jacqueline's listening, she's not going to want me to say this, but I had been given the nickname years ago called Data Gal, because when I make a statement, it's based on hard data. I formulate my opinion on hard data, not hopium. Hopium doesn't really work. It's not a good plan. So, yeah, both. Absolutely. It's because of lower risk of confiscation, which they've been confiscating your wealth your entire life. Are they really going to stop right at the end? No, they won't. And also the premiums, which, just bear with me for a minute. But yes, the premiums have been, they're not as low as they used to be, but they're not as high as they're going to be either. There ain't no fever like gold fever. Just keep that in mind. And Copper 022. Wait a minute. You really are live? Yes, Copper 022. I really am live. It's my favorite day of the week and my favorite time of the day, because you can ask me anything and even making those questions. Yeah, I really am live right now. Now, if you watch it later, no, I won't be live then because I'm alive right now. And Steph Fran 9761 asks, Lynette, hi. Moments ago, I was discussing with a friend how exciting it is. 1 ounce silver eagle is over $100. Amazing times. How many years before full production is that in Greenland or New Greenland or North Greenland? I don't know, but that saga is unfolding and it's really polarizing the world, and it's it's shifting a lot of things. I have said this right from the beginning. President Trump's job is as a change agent, and he is certainly doing his job. I'm not quite sure about Greenland. We'll find out. And Joe Potter, too. I saw a house listing the other day that said cash or hard money. First time I've seen that before. It's an indication. Let me tell you, if I have something that I'm going to want to liquidate, I would always rather do gold or silver, physical, than I would this paper crap. So I'm right there with you. I think you'll probably see a lot more of that as more and more people recognize that this stuff has zero value. And it has zero value because it's nothing to create it. And once we're digital, that takes even less money and effort to create. You can't have value if there is no value in there to begin with, other than a stated value. Oh, the government says, well, happens to be a certificate. Oh, the government says that this piece of paper is worth $100. And this piece of paper, oh, it always happens when I'm trying to find something. But this piece of paper says it's worth $20. What's the difference between the two of these? You're willing to work for this one. You're willing to play for this one. There's no difference. It costs the same thing to create them. Nothing. That's why it marches toward zero. Just look at the purchasing power of the Federal Reserve. Look at that chart, and it shows you a big fat goose egg. That's how much anything created from this that you can only convert back into it, that's what it's really worth. Wherever my $10 trillion Zimbabwe note is, I can't buy anything with it. So, Spicy8864 asks, what do you think about holding physical stock certificates instead of street name registrations? That would be my preference. I see the bail-in affecting the street name registrations, but perhaps not the other. However, I'm not so sure that that you can even in some cases get the certificates themselves. But you can find out. What you want to do is the company whose individual stocks that you own, you need to get with their administrator and see if they can hold the shares of stock there or send you the physical certificate. The advantage if the company can hold it there, if it pays like a dividend or whatever, it just kind of makes it easier. But yeah, if you do not hold those certificates in street name, so if anybody's got 401ks, whatever, all that stuff is being held in street name. In the 80s, when I first became a stockbroker, that was the big push. Get people to hold it in street name. And they paid me extra to do that. Why? Because if it's held in street name, then they get to use your equity for their collateral and borrow against it. And this is the whole thing that's happened with all of the leverage borrowing. So banks have like this much equity and all this leverage. So when things go south, because once you make that deposit, you don't legally own that. Seed and Company owns that. And who owns Seed and Company? All those big banks that create all this garbage. You're actually going to see that in one of the doom loops and how everything is interconnected, including the wealth that you hold in the system. So I absolutely agree with you that if you're going to hold on to a share of stock, you don't want it in street name, right? If the company can hold it or if they can send you the certificates. That was pretty easy to do in the 80s, but there's been a huge push to get everything in street name. And where you used to be able to get bonds and hold the bonds, the coupon bonds, I don't think there are any bonds that you can take possession of. And I know they were pushing for that with stocks as well. I don't know if it's completely done yet, but that would be a good thing to question. So would you put a little note on the PowerPoint that I want to look at if they've completed or where they're at in converting all shares into street name. That's a really good thing to look at. And Chess in Espanol asks, a dude selling a motorcycle on Marketplace asks cash or an 18-karat gold chain. See this? It's coming more and more and more. Thank you very much. It is happening, people. Can you see it? No fever like gold fever. And North Georgia Prepper asks, the gold-silver ratio is broken 50. Where do you see it going to? Great question. And I happen to have this up here. Actually, let me do this. Let me do this. Hold on a sec. Let's just pull the live ratio up. Control C. Oops, went away. Okay, let us take a peeky see. Come on. It's me. No, I don't need to do that. Let's just... Has it broken 50? It could have. We're going to find out. Okay, let's see. Okay, can you put this up, please? Oh, is it not showing?
Are you in slideshow? Yeah.
Am I in? Oh, I'm not in PowerPoint. Can you pull it up, please? It's longtermtrends.com/gold and silver ratio. So anybody has access to this information, so it's easy to track if you are of a mind to do so.
Long-term
/
trends
gold and silver ratio. And it's not saying it's broken 50. It's saying that at the moment it's 54.91. But it's getting close to that 50 for sure. But let's take a look at the chart itself. Did you find it?
No. Longtermtrends.com.
Go in there, and then in the search you can just put gold and silver ratio. But I just checked, and it's at 54.91. So, and it was at like 56 and something the other day. So we'll come back to that. I'll move forward and then we'll go back. But once it does the 50, then if it breaks below that 50, let's see, there's a little bit of resistance here at 40.12. Yep, 40.12. No, that is not. And it shouldn't have all those lines on it. All I want is the gold-silver ratio.
It doesn't want to...
That one. So, but anyway, basically, that's where I see it going to about 40-ish, 40, 55, somewhere in there is the next level of support. And once it breaks below that, there really isn't very much support until it goes down to test the historic norm. There we go. There we go. And can you put the cursor on the very last little line so they can see what that ratio is? Yes, that one. There we go. So it's getting very close to that 50, but it's not quite there yet. Maybe it'll hit it in the next couple of days. So then the next support level would be at the 40, and then below that, then we could go down and test the historic lows. So we'll find out. However, remember, it's not about a trade, because when it hits it, what are you going to do? Sell it? Just lay in your position. What am I trying to accomplish? And then it's the right tool for the job. Right? You're seeing it never hit 50 yet. So, but we're getting there. And Johnny Ringo 420 says, what would you buy to protect from if they tell us to turn in our gold? I know collectibles protect us, but what gold would you buy? The same gold that I'm already buying, because Look, I could be wrong about an overt confiscation, but there are so many different ways that they confiscate your work and wealth. Putting a tax on money is one of them. Well, they put the inflation tax on this garbage, right? So they put an visible tax on gold and on silver, right? To keep you away from it, not to have you embrace it, because they want you to think that this has value. Well, it doesn't have value. So this is the gold that I buy, right? You're looking at it. This is my personal gold. Obviously not all of it. That's in the safe, in the vault. But this is my personal gold. And I only buy the pre-33s other than if I need an example of something. And Jared H. 4774 said, should we be cashing out our retirement IRAs even though we would lose half the value through paying taxes for early withdrawal? Well, again, you have to do what you are comfortable doing, but that happens to be the choice that I made once we hit a certain point in this trend where I just did not feel comfortable holding bullion, and I didn't really feel comfortable holding any intangibles. So I converted all of that to this in my possession, because part of the strategy, and it's not rocket science, it's really quite simple actually, but part of the strategy is recuperating those taxes. When the government or the central banks want to institute policy, they might spend 2 seconds on what that ultimate policy is. They might spend 20 hours on how they are going to spin it and release it to the public. This is great because you said we lose half of the value through paying taxes or early withdrawal. That's how they want you to look at it, because you're looking at it and you're going, oh, look at this. I have $100,000. But you never had that $100,000. You're always going to have to pay taxes, and you're not even the one that gets to determine how much those taxes are going to be, right? They can do a one-off like they've talked about forever, 11%. And then if you think they're only going to do it once like they did in Poland, right, during the sovereign debt crisis, and they did that one-off, oh, we're only going to do this once and then we're not going to do it again, then you don't change behavior and they have you exactly where they want you. So you can't believe them, and you can't believe that they're going to have your best interest at heart. They want to stay alive and viable, and you are just the right size to fail unless we all come together in global community and say, no, you don't get to do that anymore. There are more of us than there are of you, and we have a voice. It's time to take our voice back. How do we do it? Redeemable gold in the system. That's how we do it. You ain't going to do it any other way, because what tools do you have to hold any of these officials, elected or otherwise? What do you have to hold their toes to the fire? Absolutely nothing. Nothing. Let's take our power back. Then we can look at it different. And Luker says, I love junk silver. Surprised it's doing so poorly compared to rounds and bullion. Guess that's the melt value and process being more difficult. It's not really the process being more difficult. It's 90% silver, so that's going to make a difference. At the moment, I don't care. I have junk silver. I have bullion silver because I haven't finished doing my work on the silver confiscation. So I could totally change my mind once I really delve into that. But I agree with you. You can buy it cheaper, and it's still 90% silver, and it's fractional, and it's pre-1965. That might, if there were to be an overt silver confiscation. So what you're looking at here is a covert silver confiscation. What do you want this for? Well, I want it because it's silver. Same reason as I want these chopsticks, this jewelry because it's gold or silver, the flatware. Just keep in mind, it is all monetary at its base. And when we are in hyperinflation, You don't have to worry about the premium or the melt value or anything like that, because at that point, everybody is going to be very well aware of the value of both of this in any form, whatever form it's in. We've seen that. Red Drider 8106, Canada may not have any gold reserve, but I wouldn't swear we do either. Yeah, I would agree with you. I would agree with you. It's interesting that they talked so much about doing the audit until they actually got in there, and then it went dead silent. And we do have the revaluation account. I have been doing some work on that. I mean, I had a list of all of the PowerPoints that I have started, and it's a very long list. And I have to keep I know how I do it, but yes, we're working on that one too. There's a lot that's coming up, and you're going to like them. Because I wouldn't swear that the U.S. has any gold either. And not only that, but look at what's happening in Italy with them saying that this is the people's gold. What they're actually saying, this is the government's gold, but it was paid for by the people. And so we just want the perception that they own something. But when in reality, we the people have given our gold to the private central bankers, not the governments, which I find really interesting. So, I think you're right, Red Rider 8106. I don't know that any of them really have the gold that they say that they have. Italy's got the third largest hoard. Are you 100% certain? With all of the funny contracts and the leasings and the this and the that and the other thing. That's why I had said, even when they were talking about doing an audit, great, they'll open up a door, they'll show us that we got a whole bunch of bars of gold. Okay, but what I want to see is the ownership string, because that's where where push really comes to shove. And GSD Puppies 3230 says, Lynette, love your vids and lives. Thank you. I've learned a lot. Thank you so much. You are very welcome, and thank you for all of your support. I really appreciate it. Wouldn't it make more sense on silver to buy low quality graded coins in case they go after constitutional junk silver? Yeah, that could, and I have that on my, I actually have that up, so I'm going to be working on that. So let me take a look of what that looks like. But yeah, I'm not opposed to it. I get it for my grandson. It just hasn't performed very well. However, if we could just put a pin on that in just a minute, because I promise you, I have all of this open that I'm working on. And some of these pieces I can do, they take me longer to do because there's such deep dives and so much research that has to go into it. But it's definitely there. And Geo from Matvid, from Atvid, I hear a lot about copper is next to run. What do you think of this? And I have been paying more attention to copper. It is not a monetary metal. However, it has certainly been running, but it's more an industrial metal. So copper is more about inflation and global production. And that's why today, I don't know where it is right now, but when I was looking earlier today, where you had the monetary metal spot, gold and silver up, you had copper down, because if we are entering World War III or something like that, that's going to be not great for the global economy. But copper has been running. So I will do something on copper, but I did put that on my radar because you guys asked me to. And yes, we are live, and yes, we do pay attention. And Frozen Dog 5275. When it comes time to pay off our mortgages after the first reset, will it actually be possible to sell our gold for fiat and pay it off? Or will we somehow pay off the mortgage directly with gold? You're probably not going to be able to pay the mortgage off directly with gold unless there's been, before the reset, I'm thinking aloud to myself. Before the reset, that's when the gold confiscation comes in, and the possibility of it. So I will be showing you that in the doom loops of when we are in the most and greatest jeopardy of an over confiscation. That's part of what I'm going to be showing you. So if we have done that and it becomes the bank's job to gather whatever other forms of gold are out there, then yeah, we would be able to deposit that gold directly with the bank to pay off the mortgage. What is more likely, although I might feel differently about this once I'm completed with the piece that I'm working on for that, what is more likely, and I know that we're already set up where we are already putting these pieces in place, right? Because we're going to have to time this. On the way out, our job and our goal is to capture the most gains for you as possible. And so we will have this window, and we have several different ways that we will be able to determine, okay, how are you going to gather the most income from it? Chances are pretty good, though, we are going to have to convert your gold into fiat and boom, pay it off like that. But everything will be done with wires, so it'll happen very quickly. And really, we are already putting all of those pieces in place for the exit, because there ain't no time to do it when you have to execute it. That's why being prepared with food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter, get it done. Get it done. Booty, hooty, Rudy, Manooty if you're early. I don't care. I'd rather be 10 years too early than even 1 second too late. Because when you're too late, you have lost all your choices. And Ghost Collector 2030, and you will be able to see because we haven't recorded it yet, but I did just finish a video on how you use gold to pay off your mortgage. So you'll be able to see that. And Ghost Collector, okay, we did the 14,330. We recorded that today, Ghost Collector, especially for you. So that will be going, that we can probably put out pretty shortly. But what that's, I don't remember the numbers. I mean, I'm sorry, but there's like so much stuff that I push into my brain that I don't really remember the numbers. So what this executive order was really dealing with was the private equity and hedge funds in your 401ks. So I can give you a little bit of a snicker snack and teaser because this is all in place, and the entities that are in charge of this are in the process of standardization so that it can go into all of your 401ks and your retirement plans. Having said that, right now, as we're talking, it is being tested in a court of law because you can actually have those alternative investments in 401ks, but it's not standardized. So it's already been in like Intel, which is in the process of being sued for the poor investment choices that there were available. And so make sure, Ghost Collector, I did address that. Thank you very much for pulling that up. It's being tested as you and I are sitting here talking about it in the court of law, but that is a live bill and it is being fully and totally enacted because the reality is all the best money is always made up front by Wall Street. And then in any Ponzi scheme, you need new money and new blood. So that's what's happening with the 401k. You know, the hedge funds and the private equity, they're looking at all of this money as their income is slowed down from over here or the investment slowed down from over here. Where can we get our hands on a pool of money, right? This isn't about your best interest. This is about their best interest and risk transfer to you. And when enough risk has been transferred, that's when it gets too expensive to support. So thank you for that question. Yep, I did it, and we already recorded it. So I'm not exactly sure when it's coming out, but it'll come out pretty soon. Okay. An optimistic beekeeper asks, hi, Lynette and team. Do you have any plans to make it possible to buy from Zang Enterprises outside of the U.S.? Very interesting live stream. As always, many thanks. You are very welcome. And the answer is yes. And I will have that. I'm planning on actually rolling that out when I'm in Australia in March, toward the end of March. So the answer is yes, if it works for you. But yes. Yay. Been working on it for a minute. Sometimes it just takes me a minute longer than other times. But I am a creative, and if there's a will, there is a way, and I will figure it out. Promise. But yes, I can see it now, and I'm already putting it together. And Martin QW8LH asks, where is the best place to sell scrap gold and silver? Kind of depends on where you are. You just want to be aware. So smelters, you might find some local smelters, and then you might also, and find out what they would pay you for it. It is somewhere behind spot or below spot is typically what they will pay. With that in your arms, now you can start to look at coin dealers, jewelers, other places. Cash for gold is usually the worst place to go, okay? Because they really are about buying it as cheap as possible and confusing you. But you know, if you're going to sell scrap, go to a smelter, get a price, and then it's pretty easy to make a comparison from there. And Mr. Peteroni1 asks, hi, Lynette, would you recommend selling 10-ounce RCM bar and maple gold bullion for pre-33 gold for protection, rebalance, and outcome? Not a trader, but feel like I need to change after watching your video. Thank you. Again, I go back to you must do whatever you're comfortable with, but the 10 ounces is kind of impractical to execute a full strategy. So I would say give us a call, talk about what you're trying to accomplish, talk about what you already have, and see if what you have can support what it is that you're trying to accomplish. If it is, perfect. If it's not, make a change. And remember too, it doesn't have to be all or none. You know, you do what you are comfortable doing. But yeah, I'm telling you, I converted all of my bullion holdings to pre-33s because that's where my level of comfort was. I also did have my Uncle Al. I also saw how he was holding at least 3,000 ounces of gold when it was illegal to hold more than 5 ounces any other way. So that's where I'm comfortable. But yep. And Bob Assacker, 2537. Question, Lynette, I am 73, fixed income, and have invested in silver at $32. It has tripled. Should I cash out my initial investment, thus investing with the house's money, or stay the course? Stay the course, stay the course, because you know what the real course is this, right? And you know that takes it to zero. So stay the course. Just keep doing it. And you and I are close to the same age. I'm going to be 72 in October. So, yep, it isn't whether or not. It's tripled in terms of this. We are not getting good price discovery from Wall Street. That's not their job. That used to be their job at the beginning of this experiment. But quite honestly, their job is for setting things up to being just a short-term trading vehicle. And that's what everything is. So don't believe their lies. Even at $100, I'm telling you, that does not reflect the true fundamental value of an ounce of silver. That just reflects still a trading, but this is changing. So 100 bazillion%, stay the course. You need the physical. This crap won't help you in the long term. You might need it in the short term, but this crap won't help you in the long term. And Hannah Dargan, 6079. Lynette, this is not financial advice, right? That would be correct. Even though I held my licenses, none of my licenses are hung anywhere. So nope, I cannot give you financial advice. That's why I can't tell you to do anything. I could tell you what I've done for myself. I can show you how you can determine through the technicals what's happening and where we are in this trend cycle. But nope, I cannot give you financial advice. That would be true. And I'm not. I'm just educating you so that you can make educated decisions that put your best interest first. And it must always be to your level of comfort, regardless of what anybody says, including me. And I have told you that a million times. So yes. And Mr. Peteroni 1, hello, Lynette. What are some benefits of holding slab pre-33 gold and not just all raw gold coins? The premium seems high even though you don't care. What would be considered too high in your opinion? Where they used to be. And so I'm going to ask you to, again, just kind of put a little pin in it for just a second, because this is really the collateral. I think this would fit into the collateral doom loop and also raw the Numis, so that I can show you the performance of, this is just a pre-33 raw coin, and you could even put that with this bullion coin versus the performance of the slabbed coins. And it's actually obvious when you see it on paper. So if I could just ask you to hold that for a second, Mr. Peteroni 1, I am answering that question with data and facts. I just need a little minute more. Excuse me. And Ernest DeBella asks, do you ever done live in-person events? All the time. I know this is more efficient, but us old people like in-person stuff a lot still. And I'm one of those old people that I like in-person stuff a lot as well. So yes, we're just about done with the new website, and we will have a list of all of the live events that I do. I'm doing one on Sunday, actually, and then I have things scheduled for March, and I think, is that April or May for the one in, I think it's North Carolina or somewhere. So yes, the answer is yes. I do live events all the time, and once we finally get into our new offices instead of the temporary space that we're in there, I mean, that was why we chose that office, is for the live events. So I hope to see you, Ernest, because I agree with you. I like things live too. And Jason Nash 3164 asks, I personally think technicals and patterns mean nothing. This is unprecedented times where cycles mean nothing. Well, I mean, we're going to see, but I don't know. I just feel like if we do the same things and get the same results, even though it's a little different, because after all, this is a state of Florida bill that was created in 1864, right? If we're doing the same things and we're going to get, what's the most likely outcome? We're going to get the same results. Once a government goes to this fiat system and they try and solve all of their problems with this, because that's what they do, inflate it away, this is not something new. This is something that has been done over and over and over and over and over and over. And did I say over? Right? There's lots of precedents. Can the outcome be different? I suppose, but I'm kind of thinking that's more about hopium than recognizing these repeatable patterns. Because, I don't know, just a guess, but if something has happened over 4,800 times, every single time, is this time really different? We'll find out. And you're going to be right or I'm going to be right. We're going to find out together, aren't we? And Be in the Zone 3776 asks, hi Lynette, can you suggest a strategy on how we could use our physical assets later on to pay debt, maybe buy a house without incurring capital gains tax? Is there a way around it? Thank you. Look, all good citizens pay all taxes that are due, so I'm never going to tell you to try to evade them. What I'm going to tell you is that in the sound money strategy that I developed and then we took further, there is a way to recoup those taxes that you're going to potentially have to pay on this. So you are going to be seeing shortly how you use physical gold to pay off your mortgage. And I can do another one because eventually for each part of the strategy, you'll have, well, you won't necessarily have all of this, but anybody that's executing the strategy for sure will have these things that they can study. So I don't know about not incurring capital gains taxes, but that's also why it's so important to get gold and silver legalized inside of the state systems, because then we can put enough pressure on the federal system. But presuming for a moment that does not happen. I mean, my hope is that it will, and it's certainly gaining more momentum, and what's happening in the markets right now will push that even further. But it's just, how can you recoup it? Like any fees, any taxes, any losses, anything, any premiums, how do you recoup those? You're kind of going to see it in the one that I did on the mortgages, but I can also make it more clear in more of them. I'm just kind of thinking about that. So I don't know, you got to pay your taxes, but let's just recoup those taxes. That's all. And Theodora asks, how are we not supposed to sell our gold when hyperinflation hits? I don't understand. If there was a way we can use our gold to buy income-producing assets, it makes sense, but so far there are no suggestions regarding income-producing assets, because that is for this part of the strategy. Now, let's go back to your question, right? Because there are different parts. And remember, I said the first part of the strategy is about sustaining your current standard of living. So this is your very first line of defense. And I didn't say that you would never convert your gold back into fiat or whatever the current tool of barter happens to be. But the first line of defense includes cash that's recognizable. It also would include something like Glint. So that is like a MasterCard with gold on it that you can use online or you can use at a store. It also includes gold backs, which, did we find out? Are we ready to release that yet? Okay, I don't know why it's being such a challenge, but anyway, gold backs would be in that category. And then you go to your barterable silver, so your pre-64 or whatever, but your variety of sizes of silver, and even, dare I say it, this chopstick, and your fractional gold. Now, to pay your property taxes, you are more than likely going to have to convert that fractional gold into whatever the current tool of barter is to pay those taxes. And you'll do it boom, and you'll do it boom. We would also be understanding what your cash flow system looks like. You'll notice if you talk to us and we set up a strategy for you, it's a variety of things in that first part to sustain your standard of living. So how are we not supposed to? So I never said you were not supposed to sell your gold. It depends on the kind of gold. Your barterable gold, heck yes, you are. And if you, I hope you don't, but if you have a chronic illness, gold is also about that. So we want to make sure that you can get all the care that you need to sustain your health and to sustain your standard of living. And you are going to be using gold to buy income producing assets when we see this bottom accumulation pattern, that cup formation, and we're somewhere in here. And if I ever get you in at the very bottom or out at the very top, that's luck. I'm not even talking about that, nor am I even going to try, to be honest with you. I'm just looking for getting you in somewhere near a bottom and getting you out near a top, but not necessarily even the ultimate top, because it depends from that first reset. That's where we're paying off the mortgages and that fixed rate debt. It will probably be the second or third where we start to convert into income producing assets, as all of that real estate or those rights, whatever was bought with debt and leverage, that's going to come back on the market. And then, what we'll do is we will convert some of our gold that you have earmarked for it into these income producing assets. So bear with me. You're going to have to convert them into dollars, but this is part of the exit strategy. It isn't just getting you in. Anybody can do that. It doesn't take rocket science to put you in gold or silver, but it does take understanding what this system looks like and what's the next most likely outcome. And I personally have been studying currencies and currency life cycles since 1987. Know anybody else that's done that? I'm not saying I'm always going to be right, though I will always try. But I am saying that I have the experience to do this. That's why I was put on this planet. That's what all my lifelong training was about, this moment in time. And I'm executing this strategy for me, and you're executing the same strategy that I am. So that's why I built the strategy to begin with. Built it for myself first. So just have a little patience on the income producing assets. I'm producing all of these, but you also have to understand I'm the one that produces all the PowerPoints. So, and I'm only one person, and I only have a finite amount of time. Kind of like gold, there's a finite amount of it, but I'll get it all done. I'll get it all done. And Gaskin Hart asks, "Hi, Lynette. I am enjoying your show. Thank you so much. I'm so glad. I think that collectible versus bullion is a false dichotomy. Lawmakers can declare just any kind of gold confiscatable anytime, just like that." Totally agree with you. Absolutely 100%. These guys can do anything that they want. We don't have the tools to hold their toes to the fire. So that's one big thing. We got to get that tool back. We got to take our power back. But let's think about this for a minute. Because like the federal government has a health care plan. It looks very different than what you and I can go out and buy. I'd rather have that plan than the one that I can buy, even with a premium, because I'm sure paying a huge premium now for getting less and less and less. So, but that's just not an option that's open to me. However, it is open to them. So I want you to think about the ultra rarities that are these slabbed coins that are very, very, very rare. Maybe there's 1, 2, 3, something like that. Very rare. And they go for many, many millions of dollars, $15 million, $20 million. Who can afford 1 ounce of gold at $20 million? I'm kind of thinking it's got to be the 1%ers, right? So if they did, this is what I think it would look like. All right, where's most of the gold in the U.S. held for those that own it? In IRAs, right? So not in your possession. So what they would do, since they manipulate the spot market and people believe that that number is real value, I don't know why, but they do. Let's just say, well, I can't even use 5,000 anymore. let's say that spot's at 10,000 when they decide to do an overt confiscation. And they want your cooperation. They don't want you to be upset about it. They want you to feel okay about it. So they'd say, look, we're doing a big sweep of IRAs, all the gold that's in there, and we're going to leave you spots at 10,000. We're going to give you $15,000 for each ounce of gold. Well, most people thinking that Wall Street is giving them real price discovery goes, well, wow, it's only worth 10,000, but they're willing to pay me 15,000. Okay, they can take it. When what they're going to do is turn around and reset it to, I don't know. I mean, I just ran the numbers in the US, and today, based upon the amount of gold that we say we have and the amount of debt that was just announced, that means that the fundamental value, if we didn't take into account the world, just the U.S., $146,000, something like that. That's if the U.S. on its own revalued the currency without consideration to the rest of the world. It's much lower than that when you take everybody else's debt into account. But look at it's because we hit, 38.4 trillion in what they're admitting to, right? The debt that they're admitting to. And the fact that our gold holdings haven't even changed a 1/16 of an inch or an ounce since, I think it's 1953. Don't hold me to that date. I could be off a little bit. Okay, so what do you think? Any kind of gold confiscatable? Well, if they confiscated from you at $15,000 and they know that they're going to do an overnight revaluation and pull it to $146,000, but it'll be too late for you. However, having said that, the person that paid $15 million for this coin ain't turning it in for $15,000. Not only that, but anybody that can afford $15 million for one coin is likely to either be the one that writes the rules, like Treasury Secretary Wooden was in 33, or has enough money and ability to influence those that write the laws. So while you are 100% correct that governments can do any darn thing they want anytime they want, you also have to look at the fact that when it comes to writing laws for themselves, they're much more generous and they pay a lot more attention. For you and me, yeah, we're just the right size to fail, but they're too big. We have to be big enough by coming together in community and demanding our power back. If we don't take our power back, we are in deep doo-doo. And I can't say that we deserve what we get because I think what they do is extraordinarily evil and disgusting. But we're going to find out who's right. But really, would you turn it in if you paid $15 million for it? Remember, that's invisible to them. You're not turning it in for $15,000 or $20,000 or anything like that. That's why. That's the category I want to be in. And at is all about health. Hi, Lynette. Is it better to buy silver or gold now if you have a bonus check from work? If you can do both, I don't know how big your bonus check is, but if you can, do both and call us to figure out what it is that you should be doing, right? What kind of gold, what kind of silver, how much gold, how much silver. Do both. Do both if you can. And Johnny Ringo 420 asks, are pandas considered collectible? No, they are not. They're monetary metals. And Frederick Sapatiero, I'm sorry if I'm butchering anybody's name, really. 5974 asks, hi, Lynette from France. Bonjour. Maybe you said it, but do you think that the institution is going to raise the margins on gold? They have been raising the margins on gold contracts and so and on silver, on both of them, to try and tamp down the enthusiasm. And guess what? It's not working. But yeah, that is exactly what they've been doing. It's what they always do, is they make it more expensive, they raise the margins, they try and control it. But there ain't no fever like gold fever. And I'm so glad you're from France. I have a very warm spot in my heart from France because I've talked about it a little bit here. But when I was at the lowest point in my life, and I ended up going to France by myself with a bike and a backpack. I didn't bring the bike, I bought it there, but a backpack. France kind of gave me a big hug and nurtured me back. So I totally love France, totally. And actually, I just bought some butter from Normandy cows. It cost a gazillion dollars, but it's just fiat. But Normandy butter, cream, Normandy, they're the best in the world. Okie dokie. Solar Drew. Do you sell gold? Yes, we do, and silver too. If not, can you share who you enjoy using to source your coins? I enjoy using Zang Enterprises to source my coins and execute my strategy. So yes. And the Gabagool one says, when gold is slabbed, it can be checked by serial number 2. That's important because most don't have testing machines. That's true as well. We have a testing machine and we make sure, and it's also, I mean, at this time, and I can't tell you that this is always going to be true because we might have to expand this, but right now, all of our slab coins are either certified by NGC or PCGS. They're the original ones to establish it, and no matter where you go in the world, if it's slabbed by PCGS or NGC, the grading is accepted at 100%. Any other graders are somewhat less than that, some a little bit less, and some I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. But yeah. So just make sure. And you got to buy it from a reputable dealer like Zang Enterprises. And Tom 12512 asks, is it necessary to buy slab pre-33 or can they be raw? I have both, but again, it goes back to function. This, what you're looking at here, this is my savings account. If I need to, because I have a pretty big staff, so I need to make sure that no matter what happens, I can always pay salaries and things like that. So for that, the raw coins are great. For the barterable position, the different sizes and the raw coins, you don't want slabbed coins for your barterable for that first part of the strategy. It's when you get into the next parts, the protection, because these work a little bit different, that they're more effective and more efficient in the rest of the levels of the strategy. But there's definitely raw, that's part of it, and I like the raw myself personally, but I also have more slab than I have anything else. That's because of what I'm attempting to accomplish. That's because of my goals. You have to establish yours, and then you're going to be executing, modified and tweaked to you, but you're going to be executing exactly the same strategy that I am, and it's just based on history. And Hannah Dargan 6079 asks, Lynette, how should I store my gold and silver coins? Well, there are a bunch of different ways that you can do this. And we have sheets, so if you call us, we can send you a sheet on ideas of where you can hold it. But you want, especially your barterable portfolio, you want to be able to have access to it just like that, because that's going to happen overnight and you need to make sure that you have access to it. So that means like the cash part of the portfolio, maybe your Glint card or something like that, and the raw gold and the raw silver. That you need to be able to access, so it needs to be super close to you. If you're accessing the rest of the strategy, this is where it comes in what we can do. But if you're executing the rest of the strategy and we've got it all lined up, you want to hold it in a private vault, not a bank safe deposit box, because that's still guided and ruled by the federal the Federal Reserve, and they can shut that down. But did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just not related to this, but Solar Drew, who just asked the question if we sell gold, is actually now, after the answer, is on the phone with Maria as we speak.
Oh, awesome. Maria's great. Okay, well, there you go. Thank you. But this, you don't need to access it like that because we're actually executing a strategy with it. And so while you would also likely want to hold your legacy gold near you because you're never going to trade that in, the stuff that's in the middle, bear with me, that you don't necessarily, you still need to hold it privately so that it's in your name, because if you don't hold it, you don't own it. But a private vault privately in your name would satisfy that. But you don't want to do that for your barterable. Okay, so call us and we can walk you through that. And that's great. And we'll give you an idea of hidey holes and places that you can hold it, in your home as well. Private vault would be another option. And Diana Odeman, 2847, I have 16 pounds of sterling jewelry. Is it safe from confiscation? Yes, it is. This is why you see me wearing all the jewelry that you see me wearing, right? Because this too did not get confiscated. So, and I have some exciting things coming up with that, but I don't want to tell you yet. But we're working on some other things that are exciting. So yes, Diana, good job. And Bjorn 83 Burns, coin shops can't get rid of their inventory because the refineries are buying it 15 under. Did the banks pass a new law that reclassified gold and silver? No. Can the banks buy it from the coin shops? Well, yeah, I guess the banks could buy it from anywhere that they want to. And part of what you're looking at too, and I'll have to, would you do me a favor, Jessica, and take that question and take it to Jeff to find out what's happening with our wholesalers? Because I think that's part of the problem with the small mom and pop shop with limited abilities versus a larger company like ours with expanded abilities. But before I actually say that, let's find out, and I'll come back to you with that next week. Okay? And I might even do a little video on it like I did for some on the FDIC. That's got its own little video. And Raymond D. Pasquale, 5297. Silver now a Tier 1 asset under the Basel III banking regulations. Yep. Can I see more? Okay. Yep. Gold and silver are the single safest things that you can do under Basel III. But Basel III is about putting more regulations on the banks, and we are in a deregulatory environment right now, and that will keep happening. But yes, you are absolutely right. Under Basel III, a Tier 1 asset, which means it's the safest thing that you can do as long as you hold it. Because if you don't hold it, you don't own it. Not legally anyway. And Cree 81188 asks, will Amazon, Walmart, and tax collectors accept your metals as payment? Probably not at this time, and any entity that is tied in with the government is not going to want to do that. Now, individuals, like if I had a piece of property, let's say I had a piece of property that I wanted to sell, I'm not going to want to sell it for dollars because I understand what's happening with the dollars. But would I sell it for this? Heck yes, I would totally sell it for that. So it all depends on who you're trying to work with. That would determine whether or not you could do a direct purchase with the gold and the silver, or you had to convert it into whatever the current fiat barter thing is in order to conclude that transaction. I don't really see Amazon, Walmart, and I don't know that I feel the same way completely about tax collectors because it kind of depends. But Amazon and Walmart, and Costco, those are the three that are selling gold and silver, the big box stores. They're not buying anything back. They don't really, that's not what they're about. There's demand there. That's what that shows you. And I mean, demand at a grassroots level, even though you don't really hear about it. What does that tell you? They're not going to be selling gold and silver unless they've got a big enough demand to warrant them carrying it. But they're not, they don't understand any of this. That's not what they're about. And no, they're not going to buy it back. But we will. And Jill, I'll just spell it. JLVJY asks, if gold price was at 184,000, Van Eck's emerging bonds team, it got me thinking, what would wipe out, there you go, that's the point, my darling, yes. What would wipe out our national debt, and if done right, it would not cause, well, I'll read the whole thing, all right? And if done right, it would not cause inflation. What are your thoughts? Could it happen? Well, number one, that was, that's one of the things that I was working on, because usually I do the fundamental value on a global scale. So on a global scale, if they were to want to revalue the gold to pay off all of the debts that create all of that money, on a global scale, that's somewhere around 40,000. But in just the U.S., it'd have to be 100. I think it was 134,000 or something like that is what it turned out to be. So when they talk about the gold revaluation account, which is part of the stuff I've been working on this week, I'm telling you, I was obsessed. I didn't do anything else this weekend. But when they're talking about the gold revaluation account, number one, every single bank, every single country has a gold revaluation account. Even with the levels at this level, they wouldn't use that to go to the current level because that wouldn't even marginally wipe out all of the debt, so we can't start in a new system. I'm sorry, but there is no way to do it without causing inflation. They can do it without increased taxation. But when they do that overnight revaluation to pay off that debt with dollars that have zero value, it has to be high enough at minimum to cover that first round of debt. And that's why in Argentina or Venezuela, overnight the first time, it went up over 3,500% because that would have been near the fundamental value. Actually, I could do a study on that. Let's take a look at that. Okay, let me just kind of make a note. Okay, so from the places that I've already done it, because I'm making some notes here. I mean, there's lots of it that I can pull from, assuming I get accurate numbers on that. So, they will revalue it. And if gold price was 184,000, yep, that would cover the world's debt and then some, and then we can go into a new system. But just because we can go into a new system, our job, yours and mine, our job is to make sure that it has redeemable gold in it so we take our power back. Just because they took it away from us, number one, that doesn't make it right. And number two, it doesn't mean that that's how it has to be. Together, there's 1% that's ruling everything. If we got 3% of the global population, there's more of us than there are of them. We can make this happen. I know it sounds crazy. Believe me, I know it sounds crazy. But if we don't do it, what does the future for our children look like? Slavery. Absolute overt slavery. I'm not personally worried about myself or even my family because I know what I've done. But and I think that's what it boils down to. We have been taught to just think about ourselves. If it's okay with me and it works great for me, I don't care what happens to you. bad attitude, bad, bad, bad. We are all in this together. So if I allow it to happen, well, what does that mean for you, right? I think that we can do something that makes a positive difference for all of us and for all the future generations just by taking our power back. It was that way once. It can be that way again. And coffee and cat time. Oh, kitties. My financial advisor recommended selling out of metals to put in superannuation, are you in Australia, to reduce tax and increase refund to finance personal insurance. Thought, please, Lynette, run the other way. This guy knows absolutely nothing about what's actually happening inside of the global monetary system. He's wrong. And all that does is it just robs you of any opportunity to save yourself. Run, find somebody else and ask him this question. How is money created and supported in the system? And the answer is simple. The full faith and credit of the government. Let's translate that. As long as you trust them, you have faith, you will continue to loan them money, extend them credit. But what happens when that confidence and that faith is gone? There's your hyperinflation. If everything you have can only be converted back to this, then what you have is a big fat zero. Run. I mean, seriously. I went to Shearson because at that time in the 80s, they had the best training program on the street. 2.5 years. It was a phenomenal program. They told me back then that they put $250,000 into me. And I believe it. I know what the training was. And it was, I was up there. They sent me to Chicago. I was living in Florida at the time. They sent me to Chicago, put me up in an apartment, gave me a per diem, blah, 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 blah. And I went to the training facility right across from the SIBO every single day. They never taught me how to read the technical language of the markets. Well, but wait, I was there the first time, I think 6 weeks, 2 months, something like that. This was a 2.5-year program. And even after I came back, every other month I was there for a week and blah, 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 blah. What they taught me, which is invaluable, I appreciate it, is how to sell. They'd say, sell the sizzle, not the steak. Right? So how do you sell an intangible asset? The sizzle. It's exciting. It's sexy. It's this. It's that. It's blah, 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 blah. It's going to go up. Blah, 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 blah. Right? But what we need today is the steak, the gold, the silver. We need to hold our purchasing power intact. I didn't think that that's why clients were going to me back then. I thought they were going to me because I was supposed to know what in the world I was doing. And that's why, frankly, I cut my teeth on government bonds because I figured, hey, they can tax you to get the money that they need to repay you. So while I was learning, I couldn't burn anyone. I could say the same exact thing about gold. And when I was other places, that's what helped me sleep at night because I knew that the worst thing that happened was that people were sitting on gold and silver. Booty hooty, Rudy Manuti. So whatever their intentions were, it didn't really matter. They couldn't really burn anybody because at least you had physical gold and silver in your possession. But there's a much better way to do it, and that's what we do here at Zang Enterprises. And we actually do give a crap. We care a lot, and we're executing the same strategy right along with you. And the level of professionalism that we have in the strategy specialists, I mean, you've met a number of them that have come on air with me. Riley, Sari, Kenneth. Who else has been on air with us? Morgan, you've met. You've met some of us, right? But we put our money where our mouth is. We are actually executing this strategy with you. and run away from that. I knew too many people that just did the bare minimum that they needed to do to get to where they thought they wanted to go. And that means that they weren't really looking at what's in your best interest either. I'm not saying he has ill intention. I'm saying he has no idea what he's talking about, and it's the blind leading you. And don't believe him because he has no idea what in the world is going on. Run, run, run. How do you feel about that, Lynette? One of the fun things that I used to do when I had clients was when their stockbrokers or their financial advisors were giving them a hard time running around. And of course, most people don't understand, and they just kind of talk in circles. And so they would ask me, and as long as they were on the line, I wouldn't do it without the client on the line, but I would have their conversations with their financial advisors. And so when they'd start to talk in circles, I'd explain it and pull them back to the point. And I would ask them questions that they would just be like, I will say it was a lot of fun for me. That's kind of mean fun, but it was fun for me. Shouldn't they know that? If they're dealing with your money and your wealth, shouldn't they know all of these things that I show you? Because I think they should. I think that's their job. But I think it's more work than they're willing to do. I mean, this one guy, I shouldn't, I'm kind of going down this bunny trail. This one guy, he was just ahead of me, and he wrote everything in ink on his hands, this side, that side, up his arms. And I went in and I said, well, you know, a bond is a debt instrument. Seriously, that's like 101. And he goes, oh, that's really good. And he writes it on his flippin' arm. These are the kind of people that you're dealing with. You need to know enough to test them to see if they really know what they're talking about. This guy clearly does not. No clue about what's happening with the money supply and the currency and the financial system. No flippin' clue. Sorry. How do you feel about that? Yeah, really strongly. Ticks me off. Michael R. 4470, I better move on or I'll stay stuck on that one question. I don't understand the bank account thing. So if I had $1,000 in my account, I would wake up to a balance of like $1, like there was a withdrawal of $999. Please explain. Thanks. I can't do it on here. You know what? Let's write that down. Can you bear with me because it's going to be easier if I show you and tell you at the same time? And I have so many things that are going on with this that I will do a video just on that. So a short little, that can be like a 101 video. I will do it just on that. Okay? Thank you, Michael. And Leslie Avi 7675. Lesalavi 7675. Lynette, can you discuss JP Morgan and Bank of America covering shorts in silver? They got to cover their shorts. They're in deep doo-doo. So what a short is a short is selling something that you don't own. Typically, the intention of selling a short, and it can be silver or gold, it can be stocks, or it can be anything, right, is to push the price down, and then you go in and you buy it at that lower level. But that's not what's happening, right? And there are no limitation on the losses from a short position. So what they're having to do is go in and buy the gold and silver at this higher level to close out that short. Why would they do that? Because they think that gold and silver are going to continue to run. That's why they would do it, meaning that their losses would grow more and more and more if they didn't. And clearly with all of the new well, they've broken the final resistance level. Frankly, nobody really knows where this next resistance level is on gold or silver because it's in new territory. So we have to wait, see where it bumps its head multiple times to determine and see if it can't break through that as well. So they're covering their shorts in silver to at least put a cap on their losses from gold and silver that they did not have that they previously sold. Does that make sense? If not, I can do a piece on that as well. This is probably why I can't see all of the pieces in. I'm going to show you guys something just so you know. Oh, I don't even know that I can't do it on here because this is just my studio laptop. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I don't know how many PowerPoints I've got started. I don't even know. But that's okay. I think this is also a really good PowerPoint to do. We might have to have like another space where we've got this list for me easy to access instead of the PowerPoints because I think it's getting a little unwieldy. Okay, we'll get there. And okay, Colton Stutz 7327 asks, what if you just connected a nice silver chain to all your coins and made them jewelry? Ta-dum. And Pork Roll F3 asks, when should silver be traded for gold? At what ratio? 20-1. I go back to what is it that you're trying to accomplish? Because we're in the end zone environment right now. There's not one doubt in my mind that everything that's happened since the crisis in 2008, which really started way before that, was the end of the system. And, I know that these things don't happen quickly because then you notice they try and postpone and create distance between the choices over here and how you receive it. So do you have way more silver than you need? Again, I'm going to say call us because, you've incurred fees to buy the silver. Well, there are some instances where it would make sense to convert some of that silver into gold, but it might not make any sense to do it because you can perform the function that you might have done with gold, like say for property taxes. It's easier and better with this, but depending upon the level of silver that you have, you might not need to incur an additional fee just for that function. So I would say call us and have that conversation, and let's put everything out on a sheet that we can look at, right? That you can look at. And we go, okay, what are we doing here? Then you're starting to make those educated choices. Because regardless of what I say, and regardless of what anybody says, I really do want you to have the ability to determine what is in your best interest. I don't want anybody else to determine that. It has to be you. So that's why I do all of the work that I do, is to help you make educated choices. And I appreciate the questions. Because it just shows me what holes do I need to fill? What do you need from me? So this is fabulous. But I can't answer that question because I'm not a ratio trader. I'm not a trader. I'm a strategist. And Krems SM3E says, Lynette, should Canadians buy pandas or eagles? I don't think that that's really going to protect you because those are still monetary metals. There are old gold Canadian coins, and even being next to America, I mean, I think you can easily put together the barterable part of your portfolio from, like if I were going to do bullion, then the most popular size for me, what I would want to hold the most of, would be 10th ounces. And the reason is because that'd be far enough away from what the maximum level that I could hold during a confiscation would likely be. I mean, prior to 71, it was 5 ounces of gold. So Krems asks, can you just be a little patient for me to roll out how you can work with us, but at the same time be in Canada or Australia or France or someplace else? Because I am going to be rolling that out, and the goal is to have that everything in place that we need for at least an initial kickoff by by March 20th. I'll even put a date on it. So you better put a date on it so I don't forget. It's a good thing. You know, it takes a village. It does for all of this. It takes a village. And Eyes to See 438 asks, why do people say don't buy Buffalo Silver rounds? Well, I don't know. I own some Buffalo Silver rounds. They're just rounds, and it has nothing to do with the government. The Buffalo Silver rounds are just rounds. They're not a government-issued coin. So I don't know why they say don't buy them. I don't say that. So I can't answer that question. I own Silver Eagles. I own pre-33s. I own Buffaloes. I own a lot. I mean, I own Canadian Silver Maples. I mean, I own Forks. So I don't know why they say that. I don't say that. And JLVJY asks, pre-1933 gold. It is smart to buy any pre-33 gold, or is there something one should look out for to not buy? Well, number one, I think it's important that you work with somebody that understands this market. I think that's really important. I would also say that you need to buy from a reputable dealer. Like, I wouldn't buy it off of eBay or anything like that, because you don't really know what you're getting. Whereas if you work with somebody like us, where we have our Mint Direct dealers that guarantee the authenticity and that this is what they say that it is, that is easier for your surety on the way in, but it also makes it easier for us to liquidate when we're executing the strategy, because they know the coin, they have all of that. So I would say make sure that you're working with somebody that is reputable, that really understands these markets and how they work. Most bullion dealers have no flipping clue how this particular market works. And stay tuned, because the Wainumis is like pretty close to the top of my list. So I'm already heavily into it, and I just was focused a little bit differently this weekend. I thought I'd get back to it, but I didn't. However, I will this weekend for sure. I don't know when I'm going to have it ready for you to see that'll answer all of these kinds of questions, but I will have that for you reasonably soon. Promise. And yeah, just work with somebody that's reputable. Call us. We're great. And we're executing a strategy with a proven track record. And we have an exit strategy. So it's not just what you buy, but it's also knowing when to liquidate and having that set up, which we do. And Mr. Peteroni 1 asks, do you think trading with physical gold and silver for whatever reason at any time, preferred gold to silver ratio, still a win as long as you're not converting into fiat currency? Yeah, you could definitely say that. I'm just not really good at random. You know what I mean? It's kind of like I want to always have a plan. I always want to make sure that I'm moving forward in the right direction. And so having a plan gives me that guidance. And knowing what I'm trying to accomplish, that is what should be driving anything and everything that you do. What am I trying to accomplish? And what is the best tool to accomplish that? Because the fiat money is just about mimicking gold and silver and the qualities needed to be money, right? A tool of measure so that you can price things, a tool of barter, so if you give me this, I'll give you that, a short-term store of value to make sure that you're fairly paid for your labor today, and a long-term store of value so that no matter when you use this money, you are always fairly paid for the labor that originally created it. So they came up with this stuff, and hey, you can use this as a tool of measure. Okay, this is $20, this is $50, whatever. Okay, that works. And they've convinced us that this is money. It was sneaky the way they did it. Of course it was, because you wouldn't have agreed to work for corporate debt unless it was sneaky and you didn't know it. But this is a tool of barter because we've agreed if I give you this, you'll give me that. It's still a short-term store of value because if you make a deposit into your account today, you're kind of fairly paid, but we all know it's not a long-term store of value. So this eliminated one of the four functions, not a long-term store of value, and you don't realize it. With the digital currencies, well, what the central banks are talking about is having the ability to have negative rates on those savings accounts. And so that means that once we're fully integrated into the digital, your paycheck immediately goes into a bank that is impacted by negative rates. So as soon as your paycheck hits that account, you start losing principal through those negative rates. So that takes it down to two functions. Just a tool of measure, okay, it's this much, and a tool of barter, okay, if you give me this, I'll give you that. It is no longer a store of value anywhere in this system. And as we're now seeing, it's being proven that Bitcoin is not a store of value. This is the test. And did cryptocurrencies are failing. They want you to think they're this, they're not that. And Rory Breaker 23, hello Lynette, is it wise to still be trying to create income generating assets right now in tandem with accumulating metal, or is it trying to create a business now a bad idea? Creating a business, it probably kind of depends. No, it's not horrible to be creating a business right now. There are a lot of really good businesses. In fact, Zang Enterprises was created during a period where we are transitioning into a new system. So the strategy can also be applicable to a business. This is not just an individual strategy. And indeed, we have certainly done that where it's tweaked. And like I told you earlier, this is my savings to make sure that no matter what happens, I can always pay my salaries. I can always pay my bills if something should happen. So no, if you want to start a business now, then you can still talk to us and we can help you structure it so that you can benefit from the strategy. The business can benefit from the strategy, just like personally you can benefit from the strategy. What would not be wise is to invest in real estate right now, because that's like catching a falling knife. Now you have to have a place to make your last stand. And you'll see the video that I did on how you would pay your mortgage. And in fact, I accumulated gold eagles, bullion eagles, frankly, which is the money that I used for the down payment on this house. And it was a great strategy for paying taxes and all sorts of things. I don't buy bullion anymore because of where we are in this trend cycle. So it's speculating. This is not the time to speculate. But starting your own business, it depends. If you do it in a wise way, then I think that's absolutely fine. And you can use the strategy, the sound money strategy, to build a nice support foundation for that business. And Awake Now 711 And Lynette, are you selling pre-33 gold? If you're talking about a Zang Enterprises selling that, yep, we've got the wholesalers in place. That's where I get my pre-33. If you're talking about me selling my personal, no, I am not. I continue to accumulate. I am not selling it. But Zang Enterprise certainly does. And Hannah Dargan, 6079. Lynette, would you recommend getting a small amount of foreign fiat currency for mobility in the event of migrating or fleeing to that country? Canadian dollars or Mexican pesos, etc. You know, I mean, every currency is going the same way as the dollar. So if you have a bug out location that is in another country, then the answer would be yes. I would lay in the same kind of first moving part. So yes, I would have some of the foreign currency, and I would also see about, and we're working on this, getting our hands on the old foreign coins in whatever country you're going to, whether it's Mexico or Canada, if that's where you're going. So the answer is yes. You would execute the same kind of strategy everywhere and anywhere on the world. And do we have any more questions? Okay. Humbly Noble, every time I've sold my metal, I've regretted it. Ta-dum. Yep, ta-dum. And Berku Glulcan SI5JB asks, what are those income-producing assets? How can we recognize them? Well, it's anything that will generate income. So it could be things like a parking lot, right? That's an income-producing asset that really doesn't take a whole lot to maintain, and it doesn't really take a whole lot of physicality. Like, you don't really need a big staff to support that, but it's kind of a cash cow, right? Toll roads are another one. Ports could be another one. Air rights, water rights, commercial real estate. It kind of depends. So part of what we'll be looking for when it's not time to go there yet, because things can change as far as your abilities between now and then. But one of the things that we look at when it's time to convert into the income-producing assets is what do you have to work with? For example, I had this client in Manhattan, and she was an older woman. Boy, was she just bent on getting rental income. But the problem is that she couldn't maintain the properties herself. And so she couldn't actually do that piece. Now, there are companies that will do that, but you also have to make sure that the fundamental value of the piece is at the right place so that those entities that you bring in aren't going to erode any benefit that you get from them. So there's a whole bunch of pieces. But I knew, just because know your client, right? I knew that this was not really something that she had the ability to do. She would be better off with purely passive income that she didn't have to do anything with. There were just checks in the mailbox. So please understand that when you work with us and you're going into this sound money strategy, this is where we're starting. But we know all of these things that are coming ahead because of the patterns. And when it's time to unroll that next piece, you will understand it too. We don't want you to do any of this blindly. We're hoping to prepare you with all of these tools so that whether it's today or it's 20 years from today, you have the ability to make educated choices that puts your best interest first. Excuse me. I thought I had to sneeze, but it went away. I do have to blow my nose, though, but we'll wait. We'll wait for that. That's gross. Okay. So that's how you can recognize them. Just what are these, and things. Another thing that I think is phenomenal, and we've seen it unfold, and when it's happened, I brought it to your attention, is that governments, states, federal governments are when they are desperate for cash to run things as they're falling apart, they start to sell off their income producing assets because that's the only thing that the markets will buy. And so something like the main, not an auxiliary, say, firehouse or police station, but the main one that you know that they're absolutely going to have to maintain, that could be a new one. So they sell it to you, and then you immediately start collecting rent from the entity. So there are lots of them, and we'll be going over those more as we get closer to executing that part of the strategy. But if they generate income, that's how you can recognize them. And bad pup 3922, there's no such thing as a bad pup. But anyway, what came first, the golden egg or the golden chicken? On a more serious note, since silver is in such short supply, where can one buy silver in the system and outside of the system? Well, I mean, you can call us and we'll sell you all the silver that you want. But, you know, I use this, I could fill the table up with all of the scrap silver that I buy at estate sales, at yard sales, at secondhand shops, you know, all of these places. You have to make sure that they are marked sterling, and you can carry a very strong magnet in your pocket to determine, because gold and silver are non-magnetic. So that's like a quick little test if you're out and about to see. But that's how you can buy it outside of the system, you know, probably at pawn shops as well. So there are all different ways. Auctions. In 2020, when it was hard to get your hands on silver, I bought a lot of stuff at auction. They didn't know what they have, and I'm happy with that. So there are... Okay. Thank you, Josh. Actually, can you just mute this for a sec? All right. Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. Okay, I'm back. And Crypto Criminy 11 asks, what do you tell a person that doesn't care about digital currency or doesn't believe that gold or anything could be worth more than their hardworking dollar? It's hard to get Miss Lynette a point. Well, you know what? That actually takes us to the dime cards. And remember, if you're a client, you get the first one for free, and any others that you want are just at our cost, because those people have never held sound money in their hand and they don't understand how it works. And we have several very short little videos so you can get them to sit. You can usually get somebody to sit for 5 minutes or less, especially if they love you. And so this is really a great place to start, and why we created it. Because on this side, you have a dime, which I know it's 90% pure, so it's not really a tenth of an ounce of silver. But back when we bought these dimes on August 27th, so a lot lower price, this dime was $2.78 versus a new dime that's 10 cents. And actually showing them the purchasing power chart. So try that. Put some sound money in. You can show them how this one, it's all silver, right? And on this one, you can see that line and help them start to think. And it may take a minute, you know, I mean, what you're asking is for them to make a paradigm shift from something that they believed in their entire lives. That's something that's really hard to do, right? Because what you're asking people to do is to realize that they have been living inside of a lie their entire lives, and most people don't want to do it. But the purchasing power chart from the Federal Reserve himself and showing them that zero, call us. get some dime cards that you can hand out to these people. And also you'll have the links to these private videos that you can sit them down and get them started in understanding. And there's also a QR code on the back with a little intro. So that's the way to do it. At least that's what we're giving a shot at, because how can you ask people to support Sound Money when they have no idea what it is? So we're working on that, but try that. And then I would really appreciate it if you would come back and let me know how it went, because we can always tweak things if we get the feedback that this worked really well. We can expand on it. This didn't work at all. Okay, what can we do different? That is the best thing I ever got from Shearson, honestly, was when they said to me, most people try something and it doesn't work. And then people go, well, I told you this, I told you that, I told you this, I told you that, instead of looking, right? And then you beat yourself up. But what is better is to say, what did I do right to get as far as I got, right? I'm sitting in front of you guys. I did something right. But what can I do right to get even further? So for you, those of you that have been, using the dime cards, any of the feedback, I would really, really appreciate. And you can send it to hello@LynetteZang.com. And in the subject line, if you put dime card feedback, then they can make sure that gets to me. So if I need to tweak what we put out there, I will do it. I will totally do it, because I work for you. So if you let me know, so shall it be. And I'm not here to argue facts. Need to talk about electronic tracking in gold now. Well, probably on some of the new ones. Why don't you put that down and let me look into it? I'll look into that. And low blood pressure, haven't heard from you in a while. Okay. Numismatic will be confiscated at spot. Well, I think you're wrong, but what the hey? I guess we'll find out in the future. Although, why would the people in the know and at the highest level hurt themselves? Not likely. And David Martinez, FH2WC, asks, hello, Lynette. Did you know that Idaho is getting ready to establish a way to have precious metals collected into a bank, and they will issue a debit card to draw from the gold deposited? Confiscating? I think it's just prepared to legalize the gold and have it usable inside of the system. So I don't think that any of these, what the states are doing, are exactly perfect, but at least it's the start that can build momentum. So this is the Idaho Constitutional Money Act, reaffirming gold and silver as legal tender when voluntarily agreed to by the parties. It exempts precious metals bullion from state sales tax. As of 2025, exempts capital gains tax on sales of gold and silver, strengthening its sound money posture. So the proposed gold-backed debit card, January, heard a proposal for gold and silver-backed debit card that would let people make everyday purchases using metal held for them. The concept described to legislators would require creating a state depository, and a number of states are creating their own depository, which I view as quite positive, where Idahoans could hold allocated gold and silver balances, which would then be spendable through a linked debit card, kind of like what Glint is right now. So it does not authorize a state-run bullion depository yet, but let's put that on our looky-loo. So yeah, and you see this is the kind of thing that's happening all over the country. And just like with the cannabis laws, when enough states had adopted it, then guess what? The federal government changed the laws. we can do it that way too. It's top down and bottom up. It's grassroots at a state level, and then it's also education on the top down as well. And it's globally. It has to be globally. So, hi, Lynette. I'm late to this live stream. I don't know if you covered this, but my question is there a clarification on the tax code for exchanging coins into fiat, asking for a friend? Let me look at that and let me get back to you. So, yep. And by the way, look, I can't guarantee I'm going to be able to do this every weekend, but I'm going to try. So I'm trying a new thing, and that is these questions I say, let me get back to you on that, right? I actually answered a few with video, like the private equity and 401ks, and also what's going on with the FDIC. Did I do a different one as well, or just those two? I think just those two with a slide and video. But the rest of the questions, and I think there were an additional 5 or 6 that I did kind of like what I've done here, I am answering those in a video. So I'm going to do my best. I did have 4 days this week, but I'm going to do my best to make sure that I answer your questions for you because it's that important to me. And Tina Marie Vincent asks, will physical metal IRAs and Roth accounts held in private vaults be confiscated? They can be. They can be because you're only able to hold monetary gold in them. So therefore, I would not consider those safe from confiscation. But they wouldn't be if they don't do a one-off or they don't do an overt confiscation. And DL Blue 65 asks, any recommendations on companies that insure the slab coins? Yes. And also the raw coins that need to be closer to home. The answer is yes. I don't have that information privy right this moment, but if you call us, we can give you all that information. Yes. And Gina Young, 6900, hi, Lynette. When is Daniel Diaz coming to join you in your offices, Citizens for Sound Money? I don't know when he's coming back into town, but we should get a hold of him and see what's going on. He will be back, and we're planning on doing some events as well. And we're also supposed to have a regular program to show people how to get involved in local politics. So thank you for bringing that up, Gina. We'll jump right back on that right now. And do you have any videos about the Glint card? Yes, I do. Six Simpson and Storm. We did one on comparing Glint with, what's the other one? For Kinesis. Not that long ago. So maybe we can pull up that link and put it in there. Okay, so the answer is yes. And Denise Bissell, 5875, asks, who is going to buy it with fiat if you need cash and not be taxed on profit, except New Hampshire? All our coin dealers here, and one is very big, will only give you a check to be deposited. I mean, that's the thing. If you try and go outside of the law, then you're in trouble. And so, we're going to have to comply with the legal letter of the law. Knowing that and understanding that is why I built into the sound money strategy a way to recoup those taxes, recoup those fines, recoup those fees. Don't go outside of the law. It can only get you in trouble. And we have to stay in business because we intend to execute the entire strategy and then some, because you're always going to need an education and what we bring to the table. So, it'll be a wire or, I suppose we can do checks as well, but we're going to have to comply with the legal letter of the law. Right now, there is no part of this, or frankly, this transaction that we are required to submit. if that changes, we're going to have to comply because you need us to stay in business and we need to stay in business for you. But just recoup it, that's all. And I think this is like the last question. Okay. And this is my view, 1875. Does the U.S. actually pay off any of its $38 trillion debt? And remember, that's not with derivatives or off balance sheet or all sorts of other funny accounting tools. And they pay it off when they do the reset with dollars that have zero value. That's that overnight reset. Take something that is used in one place and really has no intrinsic value at all. In fact, the intrinsic value is zero, and it revalues it against gold that is used in every single sector of the global economy. In fact, I actually did a count, and while this list is not absolutely conclusive, I might have missed some things, there are 33 entities that actually use physical gold. 33. One. This is a physical representation of Bitcoin. One place. 33 places. 33. So, what was the question? Does the U.S. actually pay off any of its $38 trillion in debt? No, what they do is they reset the currency, create crisis to justify bringing in the full surveillance currency. But yeah, they repay it with dollars that have zero. First it's less and less value until ultimately zero. Their debts were paid off with this currency that has no value, etc. It's the way it works. So this was fun. I'm telling you, I love these things. And I can be in any kind of mood, although I'm pretty even-keeled, I think anyway. I can be in any kind of mood before I come to these Tuesday lives. And you always put me at the best mood. And I cannot wait. And I hope a lot of you there will come here when we're ready to do this in our amphitheater in person. So we'll also be doing it this way as well, but definitely bodies in person. We can fit 150 bodies in that amphitheater, and I'm chomping at the bit. I've been wanting to do it for, more than a year and a half now. In May, it'll be 2 years. We're getting there. And until next we meet, I know we can come together in global unity and demand redeemable gold back in the system again. Let's take our power back because we really do. We are obligated to leave this world a better place than we found it. And having sound money in the system levels the playing field for everybody. It gives us all our American dream where we can dream, have those dreams come true, live in a safe place, and be together to support each other. And until next we meet, please be safe out there. Bye-bye.